Well, welcome everyone to Breakthrough Leadership. I'm Matt DeYoung.
And I'm Greg Yates. Breakthrough Leadership is here to help you unlock your purpose, live with passion, and become the leader you were created to be.
Yeah, in today's episode of our vlog, it's episode 18, and we're going to talk about how to lead with why. So Greg, when it comes to why, it may be, if you're a parent or a leader, it may be your least favorite question. Why?
Oh yeah, that's a great point, Matt.
Yeah, but look, we talk a lot about getting on the same page, Greg, when it comes to leadership, and there's two sides of that page. What do we do, and why are we doing it? So, when it comes to why, why is it, Greg, if we don't answer why, we'll be left with a lifeless organization that's just barely surviving?
You know, Matt, I do want to talk about the things that leadership isn't that are kind of confusing, but I was just reminded while you're talking there of a meeting I was in where it was actually a coaching session, a group coaching session, and I asked the question, what does great leadership look like? And immediately, a well-dressed young woman said out loud, I won't name her, said out loud, great leadership would be if people would just do what I tell them to do and quit asking so many questions.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds good as long as you have access to a group of drones who will just do exactly what you want and never ask questions. I don't think that exists, do you?
I don't think so.
I mean, it's kind of an interesting paradigm there because the entire room, Matt, came to life in agreement with her.
But is this a situation where we have to be careful what we ask for?
We do have to be careful what we ask for because what's the condition under which people would actually just do whatever you tell them and not ask any questions? What is that condition?
Groupthink.
Groupthink, but it probably means that they really don't care.
Just go along.
Just go along. How am I going to get it? Come on. I used to work with a guy who would say every morning, the first thing when he came in, he'd say, come on, 4:30. That was what he said. Come on, 4:30. Well, what did that mean? Well, it meant he was ready to check out. He was looking for the quitting time. Right when he got there, yeah. And it was kind of a joke, but the reality is, if we're looking for people who will just do what we tell them and never get engaged, like you said, be careful what you wish for, but it's because we've never really created or explained or expressed or delved into a really important why.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Well, so do you have this example where somebody said, "Hey, if I could have it my way, everybody would do exactly what I said." And I already have some pangs of guilt because I think we're going to talk about procedures today.
Yeah.
I just had this discussion this morning. But there's three main things that we want to share today, and one of them, they're a little bit is not. So let me just say that up front. You said you want to talk about what is leadership not. Leadership is not a standard operating procedure that we all must obey.
Yeah,
Tell us about that.
I used to think just being a great leader meant you have to create processes and procedures, standard operating procedures, SOPs, right? You got to create those, and if you could have it to where everybody understood those procedures, you'd be a great leader.
I don't know why, now that you're saying that, it sounds so funny that a dynamic situation would come up and then I would go and look in the manual and find section 1.0. What do you mean it's not a procedure?
Well, the point to the whole thing is like you started out with, there's how do we do it and why are we doing it?
Right.
If we try to reduce our leadership to a series of standard operating procedures, what we've done is disengaged our people and ourselves from the reason we're doing what we're doing. And now, it's really important to know, what's the purpose, Matt, for an SOP? What's the purpose at all? I mean, why would you create an SOP?
I would create one so that if anything came up, they'd kind of know how to think about it.
Yeah, so we don't have to be engaged deeply in thinking about the procedure, right? We already know the procedure. Right. It's like considered to be a habit. It's like an organizational habit we can all refer to, and eventually everybody just knows, oh, this is the procedure. Right. Sounds good, right? And it is good, but why do we develop habits? I'm taking too long on this point, but we develop habits so that we don't have to use our conscious mind for unimportant things, which would tell me the SOP is the least important thing you're doing. Get those SOPs set up so that your true leadership, which is not an SOP, can be what's occupying you and your team because you're working on the purpose, the great big, audacious, why are we doing this for your mission. It's not the SOPs.
So leadership is not an SOP. It just means SOPs are standards, but they still have to know why they're doing it. It's really important. Then the second thing is that leadership is not a rule, it's a relationship. It's not a rule, it's relationship. What about that, Greg?
It's not a set of rules, you know. Leadership, if we're not careful, the things in our lives become defined by rules instead of developing relationships. I mean, one of the greatest examples you could ever have is the church, right? Is we start out with a relationship with Jesus. You know, we're excited about Jesus. How many times have you ever heard somebody say, "I love Jesus, I'm not so big on the church"? Well, what if our relationship with Jesus was all about the why? Unfortunately, we have an interesting way of making it all about the rules. Yeah. You know, so that's my point. It's not leadership, and any great big why that exists in your life is not going to be about the rules. It's going to be about the relationships.
Yeah, and as people are listening, I'd like you to pay attention to how these are mutually inclusive. These are not sort of separate standalone items. So the first thing is it's not an SOP. The second thing is leadership is not a rule. It's a relationship. And the third thing, I think this goes hand in hand, Greg, is leadership is not about you.
Yeah, leadership won't be defined by your standalone ability to have your own purpose defined and nobody else's, right? Leadership and great leaders, great organizations are going to be built on people, leaders like you, who help everyone in their team define their own purpose. That's going to lead to so many things that we'll talk about in other vlogs, Matt, where people understanding their purpose can understand why they were created. Right. If they understand why they're created, they understand how to use their gifts. If they understand how to use their gifts, guess what happens to the team and the organization? Leadership is not about you. It's not about other people serving your purpose. It's about you serving their purpose.
And it's so powerful. We could just talk, we will, another time about that idea that once you let go, you can unlock yourself, your purpose, and others. It's awesome. But today we're talking about this, how to lead with why. So it becomes sort of a leading indicator of, are we doing good? And we know what we have to do, but we got to know why we have to do it. So if there's people listening today, leaders watching this video and going, yeah, that sounds good. I want people on the same page, passionate about my mission, what we're trying to do. What's just a challenge that you could give for them?
Well, you know, I like to say it this way, Matt. Become the Johnny Appleseed of why.
That's good.
Scatter the seeds everywhere you can scatter them and see what grows. Because when you help other people determine the why for their existence, the passion and purpose for their mission, your organization and your leadership is going to bear fruit.
That's so good. So we've started this conversation. We call it Teeing It Up for You here on YouTube, or maybe you're watching our vlog, but join the conversation. If you're on YouTube, we encourage you to comment below. And what I'd love to hear from you guys is, how are you planning on spreading the seeds, Greg, about why in your organization?
And you know, a lot of great conversation happens over on our website at morethanbreakthrough.com. I hope you'll come over there and see everything else that's going on.
That's good. And while you're there at morethanbreakthrough.com, if you're not already on our email list, we encourage you to do so, because that way we can send you leadership resources via email that you won't find anywhere else.
Remember, you can do this. You can take these small steps that give you traction toward breakthrough.